Hey, what's up, world? This is your boy Christian from Christ Cars and Coffee. I'm going to start off today talking about used cars. But before I start off with used cars, I'm going to James 3:13, for which it says, "Who is wise and endure with knowledge among you? Let him show out of conversation his works, meekness, and wisdom." I really like that one. And the new version goes with saying, "Who is wise and understand among you? Let him show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes with wisdom." And wisdom, we understand, if you have chosen God, as wisdom comes from above, and what's above is God. So understand that wisdom comes from above, that we're going to work with meekness and we're going to show and help other people out. That's just the godly way. God wants us to help each other out so we can further the kingdom of God, so we can push forward and have good deeds among all of us. Like I said, this is your boy Christian. We're going to talk about used cars, and there's so much. I see about 90% of the United States, you need a car. The transit system is not there for most of us. There's a lot of us live in the suburban or outskirts or the country of the area, and you have to have a car even to get to some kind of transport. There are different areas that will come to you and pick you up at your home, but it's very few and far in between. But let's talk about used cars. Used cars are probably the most right now among everything. I mean, you have new cars, which the cars have soared in prices. All cars, used cars probably soared more than anything, but most of us can only afford used cars, and some of us has never had a new car in their whole life. So talking about used cars, what we have to understand, if you look at the used car prices now, and what you're getting for the used car is not the same. So what I want you to understand is, if you're trying to finance or even buy outright a used car, you got to look at a few things which are very important. You got to look at the year, and you need to look at the mileage. And a lot of people say, wow, it's shiny, it looks good, I drove it down the road, it's good. Well, how many miles does it have? That's the first question you should ask. If it's got lower miles, say 75,000 and below, you're probably pretty good, depending on the person who bought it before you. Because if they bought it and just drove it and just put gas in it, did not do any maintenance, it might be worse off than something that has a lot of mileage. So what you got to understand, if I'm putting $5,000 into something or $10,000 into something, that's probably all my money that I have saved up. Or even if I'm financing with $5,000 or $10,000 worth of stuff, that's a lot of money for most of us. So let's be wise. Let's look around. Just don't go to your local dealership that you've been going to. There's so many apps that are available now that we never had before. Some of the ones I really like are CarMax. Car Guru, to me, is the best. I like because it shows a good bargain, a fair bargain, and it even shows when the car is just too high, because it shows what the majority of people are paying for that car, for that year, for that make and that model. I think that's a big one. Also eBay. I've got a few cars off of eBay. I like eBay, but you got to understand the seller. And that's just like in your local dealerships or your local people who sell cars from a smaller dealership or a smaller office. You got to understand them, because most of them get from these auctions. Some of them been wrecked. That makes a big difference too, because you should not pay the same amount of money for a wrecked car as you would for a car that's never been wrecked. Because when the car is wrecked, you know, you could have problems later on down the road. Like when you wreck it, sometimes the metal will pinch a wire, and you could have something shorted, and you can have something shorted and it shorts down later, but slowly rubbing together, and you can't figure out what it is. I know of cars, I've had cars, we just could not figure out what was going on. We went through changing sensors, changing computers, doing all of this to find out it was just a wire that either wasn't grounded or was shorted out, and that made all the difference. So having a wrecked car compared to one that is not wrecked can make a difference. Now, I own both. I own cars that's been previously damaged. I mean, it was what you call a salvage title, which you can't get with a salvage title. You cannot get a loan for a salvage title. They just won't do it. You can get a personal loan, but you can't get a loan for that car, which is usually a lower interest rate. That could mean the difference between 5% interest rate and 10% or more, which makes a huge amount of difference for what you pay for. So there's so much into this used car buying. If you're going to spend $10K or more, I would probably say, unless it's a specialty car, you might want to look at getting a new car because you have a warranty and it's mostly close to 0 miles. Usually has up to less than 1,000 considered a new car. So that has a big, because you might get a used car and only lasts 3 years, where you get a new car that's going to last you 5 to 10 years. That's a big difference. Also, you got to understand what you're going to use that used car for. Are you going to use it just to go work and back because you already got a good car? That makes a difference. If you're going to use a used car as your primary car, you better make it a solid car. And the way you do it is making sure the mileage is low. Usually, I say at least 75, even you could do a 90,000, but 75,000 or less probably is more comfortable. Also, if you're going to have a used car, you got to be careful, because if the car sits up a lot, you can have problems later on with the low mileage car. But it's still much easier to fix most of the time than a car with a lot of miles. Not all the time, because a car that sits up a lot, you might have to end up paying for ejectors, which could cost thousands of dollars because the injectors are clogged up because the car wasn't driven. That gas that you put in there is ethanol based, and it gums up very easy. It's not like your old unleaded, which would stay forever and basically wouldn't gum up as bad. But with this ethanol is really bad. So you got to understand what you're getting. So to get a used car at a good price, check a lot of different things. Even if you buy it from the local dealership, check on your apps to see what they're going for. Don't look at the pretty, how shiny it is. Don't look at the rims. Look at the miles. Look how the inside, how it was taken care of. Of course, it can make a difference. Because I found a car one time that had low miles, but the inside was trash. Either maybe the odometer's been turned back, maybe they slept in it, or maybe they just did not treat the car good. Even with low miles, that means the oil probably wasn't changed, so you have a lot of engine damage later on, transmission fluids, brake, which most people don't, transmission, brake, and coolant. Usually people don't change, but that oil or that coolant in your car over 10, 15 years could eat up the engine, basically the metals in your car or the radiator in the car, so it starts leaking and you start having problems later on when you get the car. So a lot of times people trade in a car not because it runs great, it's because it's starting to have problems. And that's what you got to understand. Some people just get a car every 3 or 5 years. Some people only trade it in when they start having problems, usually when it's around 100 or more. I'm going to tell you right now, I will not buy a car that's got over 150,000 miles, because all you're asking for is headaches and heartaches. Now, if you're a mechanic and you find a car at 150,000 or more, and it has good bones, and you pay very little, which I mean probably $2,500 or less. Now, if it's like a muscle car or a sports car, even a truck, because trucks are very expensive, and you pay, and it's got good bones, that means it's solid on the inside and out, it looks good, but you might run into problems. Water pump, probably you're always going to have battery problems, brakes wear out. That's not a big problem, that's normal. But what you want to worry about is your transmission and your engine. Those are the two big money makers, because you could pay $5,000 to $10,000 for a new motor, and transmission anywhere from $1,300 to $5,000 for a transmission to get rebuilt or replaced. That's big. But if you get the car or truck for say $2,000, if it's a truck, even for $5,000 sometimes, that could be a good deal. Because if you put in another $5,000, that's $10,000, and you got a solid truck that you're willing to deal with for the next 5 to 10 years, you might have a good deal. But you got to be smart. You cannot get a car that you're going to depend on driving from point A to point B every day over 12 or 15 miles, say 15 miles, and have trouble with it automatically. Because now you're going to have to get another car and put that car in the shop, pay for that car, and get another car, either to rent, borrow, or buy. That's headache from the beginning, and a lot of us cannot. We're already stressed out with rent being the highest it's ever been, housing high as it's ever been. You've got to be smart. So used car buying is strategic. If we sit down and look and pay attention to the oil, how black it is, how it smells, does it smell burnt? Transmission fluid, does it smell burnt? Look underneath, do you see leaks? And don't buy these cars that the people put out there. The prices of cars will drop. Because if we're not buying, they can't sell, they can't make no money. So let's be smart out there and pay attention to probably one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make, which is buying a used car or even your next car. So like I say, be smart. Also, if you already have a car and you need parts, a lot of times people just go down to the local stores to get it. What you want to do, sometimes eBay and some other places are way better. I bought an oxygen sensor for eBay for $10, and the local store had it for $40. I had bought a starter, I think for less than $100 or right at $100, and they wanted $200. That makes a big difference. Yes, you have to wait a couple of days, maybe even a week for them to ship it. But if it's worth it, you do that. Now, I know the local ones have a lifetime warranty, and that does make a difference. You can go back, if it's bad, and go right there and exchange it. But if the price is huge, if they guarantee your money back, if you put it in and it don't work, you send it back. I know it's a pain in the butt, but if they're ship it back for free, it does make a difference. Because there's used and new parts all over that will go bad. They just do. I used to be auto mechanic. I still work with my own cars. You can get new parts that are bad. We went through even spark plugs, brand new, that didn't work. We went back and got new ones, and they did. And we're like, wow, no way. These are brand new. So let's be smart, people. I want to encourage people to stay focused and do the right thing. And their next purchase, be mindful of the apps out there. The one thing I learned when I went to buy a car one time, the guy said, have you done your homework? And if your answer is no, stop. Go back to some apps, look at the prices, look at the car, look at the mileage, and make the best decision, because that decision can make or break you in the long run, because there's so many cars you see on the side of the road because they can't even afford to take it off the highway, much less tow it home and fix it. So that's my truth for this week. Be smart with your next purchase of a used car. Peace and be blessings.